The miracle of Laon, France's most witnessed exorcism, a 16-year-old girl possessed by Beelzebub, became the battleground for France's religious war in 1566. Autumn descends upon the village of Vervins in northern France in 1565, carrying with it an unseasonable chill that settles into the bones of its inhabitants. In the village cemetery, 16-year-old Nicole Aubry walks among the weathered headstones, her thoughts occupied by family obligations and the approach of evening. Without warning, she collapses to the ground. When she regains consciousness moments later, her face bears an expression of profound terror. She tells those who rush to her aid that she has seen a spirit, the ghost of her own grandfather, manifesting before her among the grave. The apparition spoke to her, she insists, begging desperately for prayers and masses to be said for the salvation of his tormented soul. The family treats the encounter with the gravity demanded by Catholic teaching. Prayers are offered. The local priest is consulted. But within days of the cemetery incident, Nicole's condition deteriorates in ways that defy simple explanation. She falls into violent trances without warning, her body seizing with such force that multiple adults struggle to restrain her. She refuses all food, consuming nothing but water and the occasional communion host. Days pass, then weeks. Medical practitioners examine her and find no natural explanation for her survival without nourishment. Her parents watch in growing horror as their daughter wastes away, yet somehow continues to live. During her episodes, Nicole's voice changes completely. She speaks in tones that are harsh, guttural, and unmistakably masculine. The words that emerge from her mouth are not her own. The entities speaking through her begin to identify themselves. The chief among them announces his name with chilling clarity: Beelzebub, Prince of Demons, ancient adversary of God. The proclamation sends shockwaves through the household and the village beyond. This is no longer a matter for family prayer or local intervention. The situation demands the attention of the church hierarchy. Nicole is transporting from Vervins to the cathedral city of Laon, a journey of considerable distance undertaken by a girl who has barely eaten in weeks. The Bishop of Laon assumes direct authority over the case. He recognizes immediately that what unfolds before him carries implications far beyond one suffering girl. France in 1566 stands at the precipice of religious catastrophe. The Protestant Reformation has fractured Christian Europe. The Huguenots, French Protestants, grow in numbers and confidence, openly challenging Catholic doctrine and papal authority. Within years, the nation will plunge into the devastating wars of religion. In this powder keg atmosphere, the possession of Nicole Aubry presents the Catholic Church with both crisis and opportunity. The bishop orders formal exorcism ceremonies to be conducted publicly within Laon Cathedral. Word spreads rapidly through the region and beyond. What begins as a spiritual intervention transforms into something unprecedented in scale. Hundreds arrive to witness the exorcisms, then thousands. The cathedral overflows with spectators. Members of the French nobility travel to Laon specifically to observe the proceedings. Representatives from the royal court attend, their presence lending official weight to the events. Protestant Huguenot observers arrive as well, though their intentions differ sharply from the Catholic faithful. They come to scrutinize, to question, and to mock what they perceive as Catholic superstition and theater. The exorcism sessions themselves become spectacles of spiritual warfare conducted before massive audiences. Nicole is brought before the altar, often carried by attendants as her body writhes and convulses. The priests invoke the name of Christ and the authority of the Church. Holy water is sprinkled. Consecrated hosts are presented. Nicole's reactions to these sacramental elements are violent and immediate. She screams and recoils from holy water as though burned. When the consecrated Eucharist is brought near, her body contorts with such force that witnesses fear she will injure herself permanently. Yet when the priests conduct tests, secretly substituting unconsecrated bread or ordinary water, Nicole remains calm and unaffected. The differential response cannot be explained by performance or fakery, the Catholic observers insist, for Nicole has no way of knowing which elements have been blessed and which have not. The demon Beelzebub, speaking through Nicole's tortured form, engages the exorcising priests in theological debate. The entity demonstrates knowledge it should not possess, private details about individuals present in the cathedral, events occurring elsewhere that Nicole could not have witnessed, matters of church doctrine that surpass the education of a peasant girl from Vervins. The demon mocks Protestant theology with vicious precision. When pressed by the priests to acknowledge Catholic teaching on the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, Beelzebub initially refuses with furious contempt. The priests persist, wielding the consecrated host as both weapon and proof. Before the assembled thousands, the demon is forced to capitulate, affirming through Nicole's voice the truth of transubstantiation and the validity of the Catholic Mass. For the church authorities orchestrating these public exorcisms, the strategic value is immeasurable. Here, manifested in flesh and witnessed by thousands, including nobility and crown representatives, is tangible proof of spiritual reality. The demons themselves are compelled to affirm Catholic doctrine and to recoil from Catholic sacraments. The exorcisms function as apologetics conducted through supernatural combat. Every session reinforces to wavering Catholics that their church possesses genuine power over the invisible realm. Every forced confession from the demon's mouth serves as repudiation of Protestant teaching. The Protestant observers see the situation very differently. Huguenot witnesses accuse the Catholic clergy of staging an elaborate deception. They claim Nicole is coached, that the exorcisms are theater designed to manipulate the credulous masses. Pamphlets circulate denouncing the Laon possession as fraud perpetrated by priests desperate to maintain their authority over an increasingly skeptical population. The battle over Nicole's body becomes a proxy war for the larger conflict tearing France apart. Catholic writers publish detailed accounts defending the authenticity of the possession and the efficacy of the exorcisms. Protestant writers respond with accusations of charlatanism and exploitation. The printing presses of Europe run hot with competing narratives of what transpires in Laon Cathedral. Through it all, Nicole suffers. Weeks become months. Her body weakens from malnutrition, sustained only by water and communion wafers. The physicians monitoring her condition document her survival as medically inexplicable. She endures session after session of violent exorcism before crowds that number in the thousands. The priests invoke increasingly powerful rites. The spiritual combat intensifies. Beelzebub resists with fury, then with cunning, then with desperate threats. The demon claims it will never leave. It mocks the priests as powerless. It blasphemes against God and the saints. But slowly, incrementally, the church's ritual power grinds against the possessing entity. February 8, 1566 arrives. The cathedral square in Laon fills with an enormous crowd. Estimates suggest thousands witness what unfolds. Nicole is brought forward for what church authorities declare will be the final exorcism. The priests conduct the ritual with full ceremonial authority, invoking every spiritual weapon in the church's arsenal. The session builds to a climax of shouted prayers and anguished screams. Then, abruptly, silence descends. Nicole's body, which moments before thrashed with inhuman violence, becomes still. Her eyes, which had rolled back showing only whites, focus and clear. When she speaks, her voice is her own, soft, confused, exhausted. The demon is gone. The crowd erupts. The Bishop of Laon declares Nicole Aubry fully delivered from possession by the power of Christ and his church. The exorcism is proclaimed a miracle, divine confirmation of Catholic truth in an age of religious doubt. Nicole, after months of torment and starvation, returns to health. She marries. She lives a quiet life far removed from the theological battleground her suffering became. History records no further incidents of possession or supernatural disturbance surrounding her. The possessed girl of Laon becomes simply Nicole, a woman whose youth was marked by extraordinary suffering and whose adult life passes unremarked. But the legacy of her possession reverberates far beyond her personal recovery. The miracle of Laon becomes one of the most published and debated religious controversies of the 16th century. Dozens of books and pamphlets document the case, analyze it, defend it, attack it. For Catholics, the exorcism stands as irrefutable evidence of their church's divine authority and spiritual power. For Protestants, it represents Catholic manipulation and fraud at its most cynical. Historians examining the case centuries later find themselves confronted with an unusual abundance of documentation. Eyewitness testimony comes from credible sources across the social spectrum: clergy, nobility, physicians, royal representatives. The sheer number of witnesses, thousands at the final exorcism alone, makes wholesale fabrication difficult to credit, even as the supernatural claims remain impossible to verify by modern standards. The case reveals how possession and exorcism in the 16th century functioned as far more than individual spiritual crisis. They became weapons in the larger war over the soul of Europe. Nicole's body transformed into contested territory where Catholic and Protestant visions of Christianity clashed with visceral intensity. The demons speaking through her were forced to affirm doctrines. The sacraments deployed against them served as proof of efficacy, and the crowds witnessing these spectacles received education in theology through the medium of spiritual combat. Whether one interprets the events as genuine demonic possession or as psychological crisis exploited for political ends, the historical impact remains undeniable. The miracle of Laon shaped religious discourse, influenced thousands of contemporary witnesses, and entered the permanent record as one of early modern Europe's most extensively documented cases of possession. France would soon descend into the wars of religion, decades of savage conflict between Catholic and Protestant factions that would devastate the nation. In that apocalyptic landscape of religious violence, the memory of Nicole Aubry's exorcism persisted as a touchstone of contested belief, proof of divine favor, or evidence of clerical deception, depending on which side of the theological divide one occupied. The girl who collapsed in a cemetery in Vervins carried unwittingly the weight of an empire's faith crisis. The demon that possessed her became an instrument through which competing visions of Christianity sought validation. And the cathedral in Laon stood witness to thousands who came seeking certainty in an age when certainty had become the scarcest commodity of all. If you found this case compelling, subscribe to Vanishing Roads for more documented paranormal investigations from around the world. This story was created with AI assistance based on documented case files. All events reference real investigations and reported incidents.